Let's talk about something we all encounter at some point: toxic people. They show up in our workplaces, our social circles, and even our families. And if we're not careful, they can drain our energy and leave us questioning our worth. But here's the good news: smart people have a unique way of handling toxicity. They start with empathy, not because they condone toxic behavior, but because they understand that every negative action stems from something deeper: fear, insecurity, or pain. They don't take it personally. Instead, they ask, what's happening in their world that's making them act this way? But empathy doesn't mean indulgence. Smart people know the importance of boundaries. They're not afraid to say, this is what I will tolerate and this is where I draw the line. Boundaries are not walls, they're guidelines that ensure respect for both parties. Smart people also focus on controlling the controllable. They recognize that trying to fix or change a toxic person is often a losing battle. Instead, they master their own reactions. They don't engage in petty arguments or emotional outbursts. They rise above it, choosing to stay calm and composed. And here's the real magic: they lead with positivity. Instead of letting negativity consume the space, they set an example of how to handle challenges gracefully. It's not about proving the toxic person wrong, it's about being the antidote to their behavior. Smart people also avoid gossip. Toxicity spreads like wildfire when it's fed, so they address issues directly and respectfully. They say, I won't speak ill of you, and I expect the same in return. Most importantly, they know when to walk away. There's strength in recognizing when a relationship or situation is no longer healthy. Walking away isn't a sign of weakness, it's a declaration of self-respect. Remember this: toxic people are not your responsibility to fix. Your responsibility is to protect your energy, nurture your growth, and prioritize your peace. The way you handle toxic people says more about you than it does about them. So let's be smart. Let's choose empathy, enforce boundaries, and lead with kindness, not for their sake, but for ours. Empathy is one of the most powerful tools we can employ when dealing with toxic people. It allows us to step back and look beyond the surface of their behavior, seeking to understand the deeper causes that drive their actions. Toxicity often stems from unresolved issues, personal insecurities, or emotional wounds. When people lash out or behave negatively, it's rarely about the specific moment or person in front of them. It's about something deeper within themselves. For example, someone who constantly criticizes others may be projecting their own feelings of inadequacy or failure. They may feel the need to bring others down as a way to elevate themselves or mask their own struggles. Recognizing this doesn't mean excusing their behavior, but it shifts our perspective from one of judgment to one of curiosity. What might they be experiencing that makes them act this way? Empathy also encourages us to separate the person from their actions. We can dislike what someone says or does without entirely dismissing their humanity. This doesn't mean letting our guard down or tolerating harmful behavior. It simply means we don't have to mirror their negativity or resentment. By choosing empathy, we gain the clarity to respond thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Another aspect of empathy is the realization that we've all had moments of difficulty, moments where we might not have acted at our best. Reflecting on this can create a sense of connection rather than division. It helps us see toxic behavior as part of a larger human experience rather than an isolated attack directed at us. Practicing empathy requires effort, especially when faced with someone whose actions are hurtful or disruptive. It's natural to feel defensive or frustrated in such situations, but empathy challenges us to pause and ask, what might this person be going through? What pain or fear might they be carrying? This shift in perspective doesn't necessarily solve the issue, but it reframes our understanding in a way that fosters patience and compassion. Detachment is a crucial skill when dealing with toxic people because it allows us to protect our emotional well-being while maintaining a level of clarity and control. Often, toxic individuals thrive on engagement. They draw others into their emotional turbulence, arguments, or drama, feeding off the reactions they provoke. This engagement not only amplifies their negativity, but also drains our energy and shifts our focus away from what truly matters, taking a break, causing conflict or tension. Detachment doesn't mean ignoring the person or the issue. Rather, it's about choosing not to be emotionally entangled in their behavior. It involves recognizing that their words or actions are a reflection of their internal state, not a measure of our worth or a direct attack on who we are. By stepping back, we create space to assess the situation more objectively and respond thoughtfully rather than impulsively. This practice of detachment requires a level of emotional self-awareness. It means paying attention to how certain interactions make us feel and deciding when to disengage. For instance, if a toxic person tries to provoke us with insults, criticisms, or manipulative tactics, detachment empowers us to see through their intent without taking the bait. It's not about suppressing our emotions, but about acknowledging them and choosing not to act on them in ways that give the toxic person more power. Detachment also involves setting firm boundaries. It's about understanding that we are not obligated to respond to every provocation or attend every argument we're invited to. By calmly but firmly saying, I'm not going to engage in this conversation right now, or choosing to leave the room, we assert our right to protect our peace. Another aspect of detachment is focusing on our own reactions rather than trying to control the other person's behavior. Toxic people often want to pull others into a cycle of frustration or blame, but detachment breaks this cycle by refusing to participate. It's a form of self-preservation that keeps us grounded and resilient in the face of negativity. Detachment also helps us maintain perspective. Toxic interactions can feel consuming in the moment, but when we detach, we're able to see them as temporary challenges rather than defining elements of our lives. This broader perspective gives us the freedom to prioritize what's important, our goals, relationships, and well-being, over the distractions created by toxicity. While detachment is not always easy, especially in emotionally charged situations, it is a skill that can be developed over time. Through practice, we can learn to engage with difficult people in ways that are mindful, deliberate, and empowering, preserving our inner calm and staying true to our values. Setting boundaries is a fundamental step in dealing with toxic people, as it creates a clear framework for how you will allow others to treat you and interact with you. Boundaries are not about shutting people out or being unkind. They are about defining limits that protect your mental, emotional, and sometimes physical well-being. They help establish a sense of safety and respect in relationships, even in challenging situations. One of the first steps in setting boundaries is to identify what behaviors you find unacceptable or harmful. This requires self-awareness and an honest assessment of your feelings and triggers. For instance, if constant criticism from a toxic person makes you feel undervalued or upset, you might set a boundary that limits how you engage with their negative comments. You might decide to calmly or even step away if the situation becomes overwhelming. Once you've identified your boundaries, communicating them clearly is key. Toxic people often test limits, whether intentionally or unintentionally, so it's important to articulate your expectations in a way that leaves no room for misunderstanding. This communication doesn't need to be confrontational. It can be assertive yet respectful. For example, if someone constantly interrupts you during discussions, you could say, I value our conversations, but I'd appreciate it if we could take turns speaking. Equally important is consistency in enforcing your boundaries. If you set limits but don't uphold them, toxic individuals may see this as an opportunity to continue their behavior. Staying consistent sends a strong message that you take your boundaries seriously and expect them to be respected. Boundaries also extend to how much time and energy you dedicate to a toxic person. If their negativity consumes too much of your emotional bandwidth, you might limit the amount of time you spend with them, or choose to engage only in specific contexts. This could mean restricting interactions to professional settings or avoiding personal topics that tend to lead to conflict. It's also essential to understand that setting boundaries is not about changing the toxic person, it's about protecting yourself. Their behavior may not change, but your response and the space you create for yourself will. This empowerment allows you to stay grounded and resilient, even in the face of persistent negativity. It's worth remembering that boundaries are not static. They may evolve over time as you grow or as circumstances change. Regularly evaluating and adjusting them ensures that they continue to serve your needs and uphold your sense of self-worth. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness, it's an act of self-respect and a step toward fostering healthier dynamics in all areas of life. When dealing with toxic people, seeking understanding rather than victory is a transformative approach that shifts the focus from conflict to clarity. Toxic interactions often arise from a clash of perspectives, values, or emotions, and the natural instinct may be to prove ourselves right or to win the argument. However, this approach often escalates the tension and deepens the divide, leaving both parties frustrated and further entrenched in their positions. Seeking understanding begins with the intention to listen rather than dominate the conversation. It involves pausing to consider the other person's perspective, even if we strongly disagree with their actions or words. Toxic behavior is often a symptom of deeper issues, such as fear, insecurity, or past trauma. By approaching the interaction with curiosity rather than judgment, we create an opportunity to uncover the underlying causes of their behavior. This doesn't mean condoning or accepting toxic actions, but it does allow us to engage with greater empathy and composure. A critical element of this approach is asking open-ended questions that encourage dialogue instead of confrontation. For instance, instead of countering a toxic comment with a defensive statement, we might ask, "Can you help me understand why this is important to you?" Or, "What are you hoping to achieve by bringing this up?" These questions can diffuse hostility and signal that we are more interested in finding common ground than in assigning blame. Another key aspect is focusing on the issue at hand rather than making the interaction about personal vindication. When we shift the goal from winning to resolving or managing the conflict constructively, we reduce the likelihood of the situation spiraling into a cycle of blame or counterattacks. This mindset helps us stay grounded and prevents the toxic person from dragging us into unnecessary arguments. Seeking understanding also requires letting go of the need to always have the last word or to change the other person's mind. Toxic individuals are often deeply entrenched in their perspectives, and attempting to win by convincing them otherwise can be a futile and exhausting exercise. Instead, the goal becomes creating a space where both sides can express themselves without the pressure of one dominating the other. This approach also helps preserve our own peace of mind. By choosing to prioritize understanding over victory, we avoid the emotional toll that comes with trying to outmatch a toxic person in their own game. We remain focused on our values, which helps us maintain a sense of integrity and control even in difficult interactions. Seeking understanding doesn't guarantee that the toxic person will change or become easier to deal with. What it does ensure is that we approach the situation with maturity and self-awareness, allowing us to navigate the interaction in a way that aligns with our principles and preserves our emotional well-being. Leading with positivity is a powerful strategy when dealing with toxic people, as it sets the tone for interactions and establishes a contrast to negativity. Toxic individuals often thrive on conflict, criticism, or drama, and their behavior can quickly influence the emotional atmosphere around them. By leading with positivity, we can counteract their negativity and model a healthier way of relating to others. Positivity begins with our mindset. It's about consciously choosing to focus on what's constructive, uplifting, and solution-oriented, even in challenging situations. This doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. It means approaching situations with optimism and a belief that productive outcomes are possible. For example, when a toxic person expresses frustration or complaints, we can steer the conversation toward potential solutions rather than dwelling on the problem. Another aspect of leading with positivity is maintaining a calm and composed demeanor. Toxic individuals often provoke others to elicit emotional reactions, and responding with anger or frustration can escalate the situation. Instead, remaining calm and composed diffuses tension and sets an example of how to handle conflict with grace. This calmness can be contagious, encouraging others involved to adopt a more measured approach. Positivity also involves recognizing and reinforcing good behavior. While toxic individuals may frequently exhibit negativity, there are moments when they behave constructively or express valid concerns. Acknowledging these moments, even with a simple, "I appreciate your input on this," can encourage more of that behavior. Positive reinforcement signals that their efforts to engage constructively are noticed and valued. Positivity means bringing a sense of purpose and hope to interactions. Toxic environments often feel heavy and draining, and injecting optimism can create a sense of possibility and forward momentum. This might involve reframing a negative narrative into a more balanced perspective or finding small victories to celebrate in an otherwise difficult situation. One of the most impactful ways to lead with positivity is through kindness. Acts of kindness. Whether it's offering a listening ear, showing patience, or extending a gesture of goodwill, can disarm toxic behavior and shift the dynamic of the relationship. Kindness doesn't imply weakness or naivety. It's a deliberate choice to rise above negativity and demonstrate a better way of interacting. Leading with positivity also requires resilience. Toxic behavior can be persistent and challenging, and maintaining a positive outlook in the face of such behavior takes effort and emotional strength. This resilience is cultivated by focusing on what we can control, such as our reactions and choices, and by surrounding ourselves with supportive, uplifting influences that reinforce our commitment to positivity. Leading with positivity creates a ripple effect. It not only helps us manage toxic interactions more effectively, but also inspires others to adopt a similar approach. It shows that even in the presence of negativity, we can choose to be a source of light, creating an environment where growth and collaboration can flourish. In conclusion, dealing with toxic people is a challenge we all face at some point, but how we respond defines our strength and character. By leading with empathy, detaching from negativity, setting firm boundaries, seeking understanding over victory, and embodying positivity, we take control of the narrative and protect our emotional well-being. These approaches remind us that we don't have to let toxic behavior dictate our actions or steal our peace. Instead, we can rise above it, choosing clarity over chaos, kindness over conflict, and growth over grudges. Toxic people are not our responsibility to fix, but we have the power to decide how we let them impact our lives. By staying true to our values and prioritizing our well-being, we not only shield ourselves, but also model a better way of interacting with the world. The goal isn't to change toxic people, it's to preserve our peace, foster healthy relationships, and keep moving forward with resilience and grace. Thank you.